Welcome to the Oracle Scroll. My name is Kevin Walder and I am your host, and I invite you to join my guests and myself as we discuss all things metaphysical. Welcome to episode 16 of the Oracle Scroll. Today we're going to take a closer look at the Death card, probably the most misunderstood card in the entire deck. Then we're going to talk about personal power, how we claim it and how we use it. Embracing our personal power is a very important step in a spiritual life. The final segment, we will take a question from Stephanie regarding her future and where she's been since her failed relationship. And so we'll pull some cards and see if we can give her some guidance as to where to go and what to do next. So, without further ado, let's just begin with the Death card. I'm going to read to you, first of all, what I wrote about the Death card in my book, Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards. And I said this about the Death card, card number 13, by the way, in the major arcana of the tarot. The Death card. It may very well be the most misunderstood card in the entire deck. Hollywood has long used it to portend disaster and calamity, and if you ever see it appear in a reading on the screen, brace yourself for the horror that's about to follow. Even among the tarot community, there has been controversy over the exact meaning of this card. Many readers have opted to, sanitize the meaning so that it never really means physical death. While it is true that most often this card represents a letting go, a termination, which in turn frees the individual to allow new possibilities, its meaning can extend to death itself. The artwork generally shows a dark, foreboding, Grim Reaper-like figure, juxtaposed with a rose or other flower indicating new birth and growth. So out of the gray comes something green. The scene alludes to the difficulty in letting go of situations which are very familiar and comfortable in order to take a chance on the possibilities that may be available. The obvious question is, why start the new year with an examination of this particular card? Apparently I wrote this at the beginning of the year. I thought about that question myself quite extensively and realized that this new period of growth and expansion will not be without its moments of angst and concern. As the light begins to return to our world and new growth becomes possible, we will want to make every effort to be ready by making space available for whatever is to be our new. The Death card indicates that we need to release the old and worn out to make room for the new and better that's there awaiting us. The anxious moments come when we can't yet see the new, but we have to release the familiar and sometimes comfortable. At times like these, we have to have faith in spirit to provide what we most need as we release that which is no longer an asset to our growth and advancement. When I see the Death card come up in a reading, I see it as an indication that the querent may be holding on to something which not only is not serving them well anymore, but may in fact be harmful to them at this stage in their lives. There will likely be a grieving process for the situation that must be released, but the individual will get through it by focusing on the joy of the new coming into their life. We all know that we will die sometime, and this card reminds us of the temporary nature of our existence. It's a reminder that change is inevitable. While literal death can be a meaning of this card, the only time I would ever give this card a literal meaning is if I were getting a strong indication that death was a real possibility. And I would approach that with great care and compassion, keeping in mind that the individual has free will at all times and can effect change at their own discretion. So the questions that are left with us by the death card: what situation or attitude in your life needs to be released to allow you to grow in new ways? How will you focus on the good coming from this change to get through the grieving of letting go? And finally, how will your life be enhanced by letting go of a hindrance to your growth? And that is what I wrote about the death card, card number 13 in the Major Arcana, in my book, Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards. It's available now on Amazon.com in both paperback and Kindle versions. In keeping with our theme that we've been following of expanding our understanding of each card and trying to get a first-person experience from each one, this is what I've put together for the death card. It's a little different. Hello. I am sorry to announce that the figure of death is unable to join us today, but as his publicity director, I am here and qualified to answer your questions and provide insight into the life of my client. With the lack of public civility that's being demonstrated on a daily basis on nearly every platform available, Death has decided that a face-to-face with the press just might not turn out well and might become a witch hunt, and this would not be productive for any of us. As a person, Death is rather quiet and subdued, keeps to himself. But he does come to teach us some of the most challenging lessons any of us will ever face. He doesn't get to enjoy that warm, fuzzy reception that some of his neighbors in the Major Arcana might be afforded. His energy is change and can be jarring at times. He leaves the work of providing comfort and shelter to other members of the deck, allowing him to concentrate on the issues that are most important to him. And another reason for his absence today is the fact that he is the most misunderstood card in the Major Arcana. Modern movies, television series, even rock and roll music have made him into a frightening, ominous figure who preys on humanity. While it's true that he can carry a meaning of actual death, it is much more common for him to carry a simple energy of release to make room for the new. Therefore, the first question which comes up is usually, do you? Do you represent actual death? Well, the short answer is yes. But any of you that have listened to other podcasts on the Oracle Scroll, you know that the short answer is rarely the only answer, and it has a lot more to offer. So we're left with that question once more of what is the real energy of this card? Death portends endings and new beginnings. The ultimate human experience of these two extremes is birth and death. Birth, the ultimate beginning, and death, the ultimate ending. So when we look at his body of work, we see that he is always present for the endings of any sort in our lives. And, fortunately for us, this is rarely the actual demise, the actual death of any individual. If we go back to the era in which the imagery of the tarot was first created, we find an agrarian society which relied on the seasons and crops for their existence. Everything in life was cyclical, and time was much more measured by planting seasons and harvesting seasons rather than our modern clocks and calendars. Our ancestors were very connected to Earth's cycles and seasonal changes, and they fully understood that the waste from this year's harvest would get tilled into the soil, replenishing it and becoming the fertilizer for next year's planting season. Their may be no lighthearted approach to death, but his energy and lessons are definitely survivable. He really is here to look out for our well-being, encouraging us to let go of the old, that stuff that just weighs us down, and to make room for the new that is just waiting in the wings for us to clear a space. Since we humans naturally have control issues, oh boy, letting go of the familiar is challenging, even when we know it's for our own good to do so. Letting go before that promised new has been revealed is especially difficult for this human experience, and that is the most frightening aspect of death: the great unknown. Death is sometimes associated with the Hebrew letter nun, which means fish, or the rune bjork, which can mean boat, which has an association with both birth and death, so it kind of follows all the way through life. His astrological attribution is Scorpio. Death is quite aware of his disconcerting effect on an audience and uses all his energy to encourage us to get comfortable with letting go. He wants us to stop looking at these things as losses, but rather new opportunities. In fact, it could be said that he is asking us to view death itself as less intimidating and more freeing. It could be said that death's sole reason for existing is to be a warning, but he does definitely carry some strict warnings about hanging on to the old. He's letting us know that that is a very dangerous thing for us to do, is hang on to the things that need to be let go. One thing which does sometimes confuse death is that perceived need to sanitize his character by some tarot designers and commentators. Part of his mystery is being able to reveal so much about our personalities while leaving open the door of possibility. He wants you to know that while it may complicate his life, he is not unhappy with his role in the major arcana. Every community needs those who deal with the refuse, and that's how he sees his job: encouraging proactive completion of the job of being human. He's a glorified garbage man. When you see death show up in your spread, it is not time to panic, but get excited. Get excited about what can be released so that you can begin watching for the anticipated arrival of the new. Learning to work with death rather than resisting his influence will make this human experience much more pleasant and fulfilling. So I hope my words today have proven helpful in understanding one of the most feared and resisted cards of the major arcana. My client once again expresses his regret at not being able to address you in person, but we did work together to compose these notes so that he felt more ownership of what I was going to share with you today. And that is a look at the Death card, card number 13 in the major arcana. In the second segment of the Oracle Scroll, we take something that is of current interest and we apply a spiritual look at it to see how we might be able to work with it in the future. And this one is about power. Personal power and accepting and embracing our personal power. So this is from a few years ago, but I had a friend who was facing some challenges with members of her family at that time, and she asked my advice in dealing with them. She's absolutely certain that some members of her immediate family will find her unacceptable because of her situation and even herself. So she's feeling very unempowered at the moment. So the first thing I advised was that she assess her own mental state and the support system that she could count on if things did not go well at first, since feelings of isolation can quickly undo your resolve. I also advised that she begin her process with those closest to her, those who see life in much the same way she does, and who will be most likely to be accepting and open. Moving on to the less open-minded members of her family only after establishing a foundation from which to work. Lastly, I recommended she keep a sense of humor through it all, as there will very likely be several surprises along the way. After reflecting on our conversation for a few days, I started to realize just exactly what this friend and so many others of us are really working on, and what is leaving us with the feeling of butterflies in our stomach. It's all about power. How many times have we heard spiritual teachers say, the only power anyone has over us is the power we choose to give them, or something like that? Yet, when we take the situation out of the abstract and apply it to a specific situation in our own lives, we suddenly don't recall that we own all the power and we choose who will get to exercise it in our lives. In this year of change and adjustment, and they are all years of change and adjustment, there may be many situations which would make us feel overwhelmed and lacking the necessary power and will, even, to deal with what faces us right now. Whatever our challenge, we each have so much more power than we usually make available to ourselves, allowing the fear of the judgment of others to halt our own advancement. How many times have we started a new project or developed a new approach only to allow a dissenting voice to stop us before we ever get started? The world is full of critics who have no idea how it feels to walk in your shoes. But they're quite eager to tell you how they would handle your situation, which has never and will never occur in their own lives. Dr. Wayne Dyer has been a profound influence in my own spiritual awakening, and he often used a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay titled Self-Reliance. The quote is as follows: "Don't die with your music still inside you. Listen to your intuitive inner voice and find what passion stirs your soul. Listen to that inner voice and don't get to the end of your life and say, 'What if my whole life has been wrong?'" In that same vein of thought, we rarely get to the end of life and look back with regret of the things we did, but very often, many of us get to the end of life and look back with regret for the things we dreamed of and never did, never tried, questions we never asked. My friend is making changes in her life which will bring her personal happiness beyond what she has ever known. She's a dedicated mother to 2 boys with special needs. I know she's a dedicated mother because I see how many of her posts on Facebook revolve around them and their accomplishment. She's a very proud mother. My friend has so many reasons to be proud of her accomplishments and the kind, compassionate person that she is, and the loving and responsible parent that she is. She is a fine example of the kind of adult any parent would want their child to become. She has so much power at her command, she has no need to fear those who might find reasons to judge her harshly. They only have the power to diminish her if she gives them that power. They only have the power to make her judge herself unworthy if she gives them that power. It is all about power. Personal power. In the third and final segment of the Oracle Scroll, we take questions from the audience and we draw some tarot cards to see what we can give them for advice. Today, we have a question from Stephanie. Stephanie asks, "Since our divorce, my ex seems to have moved on with his life on every level, while I seem to be more stuck than ever. What do the cards have to say about me?" Well, Stephanie, first of all, thank you for your question. It's always difficult to watch someone else succeed while we struggle, especially under the circumstances that you just described. So with all that in mind, I pulled 3 cards on your question, and they are the 5 of Cups, the 10 of Swords, and finally the Fool. Well, the 5 of Cups indicates to me that a great deal of your stuck feeling relates to loneliness and living in the past, rehashing what might have been. This card is here to say that that can be quite normal under these circumstances, but you do want to move on, using the remaining positives to build a new life for yourself. The 10 of Swords shows up and is perhaps the ultimate card relating to being stuck. The human mind is a powerful organ and quite adept at constructing obstacles to any plan or idea we may put forth. It is time to get out of your own head. It's time to see the world for what it is, rather than what your mind tells you to make of it. It's time to believe in yourself and quit accepting any negative assessments of your worth or abilities. And finally, then the Fool comes in to say that now is the time to be in the now. You have already done way too much, actually, of the agonizing over what might have been. And you're in the middle of worry over future trials. But it's time to begin taking life one day at a time. Enjoy every moment on its own merits without comparing it to any past event or future longing. So, in summary, I'm getting a clear message that you have gone through the worst of this situation already, and now it's time for the grieving and feeling abandoned to be done. It's over. Now is your time to shine. It is time to destroy those self-defeating obstacles that, well, let's face it, you've put them in your own way. They are only there because you felt unworthy, and they can only be removed by you. Now is the time to feel and embrace your personal power. Accept that it is yours to claim. The best way to move out of this drab neighborhood that surrounds you is to begin feeling your personal power. Staying in the moment, celebrating each victory as it comes to you, without any thought for the past or the future. Life is happening right now, right here. So there's no better place to be when you're beginning to build a new life. Now, we've given you some directions for work, which needs to be addressed, but there's another message to the Fool. He's here to encourage us to remember to play as well. And I've got a hunch there's been way too little of that in your life lately. Make it a point to laugh. A real big belly laugh every single day. Make it a point to learn something new every single day. And then start keeping a journal to track those moments when you feel your own power. You feel powerful because of you having accomplished what you set out to do. And last but not least, seek out company which serves to validate your worth and serves to inspire you. Surround yourself with the kind of people you want to be. So, Stephanie, I thank you for your question, and I really hope that the cards and the thoughts that we've shared with you today are helpful on some level. Thanks again. And if you, as an audience member, would like to have a question answered by drawing some cards, please forward them to us at theoraclescroll@gmail.com, and we will consider them on the podcast. Thank you for joining us for episode 16 of the Oracle Scroll. We have had a blast putting these shows together, and we only hope that you are enjoying them too. Feedback, any kind of comments or suggestions, we are completely open and ready to accept anything that you want to send our way. And we ask that you'd address them to theoraclescroll@gmail.com. The podcast itself is available on iTunes, Google Play, Twitcher, Spotify, and we waited for a while to get there, but we're on Spotify now. And then we're also on YouTube, and of course Facebook does an auto-publish. As soon as we publish a new podcast, it pops up on our Facebook page. Also, remember to visit our Facebook page, The Oracle Scroll. It's there for any information, any kind of questions. You can address anything you like to us at that address as well. So please pass the word, share it with anybody that you know that might be interested, and we are looking forward to expanding this platform and growing it. We are growing our audience steadily, and that's always exciting to see. Also, we have a Patreon page. You can usually find that easiest by just looking up my name, and I am your host, Kevin Walder, so you can look up Kevin Walder on Patreon, and that will take you to our page. The Oracle Scroll is also on there, so you should be able to find it either way. There you can actually contribute to help us keep the podcast on the air, as well as claim some bonus packages for yourself, some ideas that you might want to explore. So please take a look at our Patreon page and see if there's a way that you would like to participate. Again, there's no obligation. It's just a suggestion if you would like to be involved in our effort. We are also looking to book some new interviews for the coming summer months so that we can keep a little more interest in other aspects. I talk a lot about tarot, but the spiritual world is full of all kinds of various aspects that we can discuss. So if you have something you would like to talk about, get a hold of me, please, at theoraclescroll@gmail.com so that we can discuss how we might put together a Skype interview for the podcast. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you for our next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Oracle Scroll. Find us on Facebook at The Oracle Scroll. If you wish to send comments, suggestions, or requests, please address them to theoraclescroll@gmail.com.